The chair calls Jeffrey Morgan. Mr. Morgan, if you'll state your name, who you represent, and your position on the bill, please.
Sure. My name is Jeff Morgan. I am for the bill, and I'm representing myself. Regarding this bill, first, Paul McHugh, he was a chief of psychiatry at Johns Hopkins Medical Center from 1975 to 2001, somebody that has some credentials behind him. What he wrote is this: the duty of all doctors who propose a treatment is to know the nature of the problem they propose to treat. And then he starts talking about the transgender issue. The issue of transgender people is that the vast majority of them coming in for surgery do not have a biological reason for doing so. They have a psychological reason for doing so. So the question is this: if they have a psychological reason for doing so, do we give a physical mutilation as the treatment for it? Or do we give hormones as a treatment for it? Or do we actually address the issue from the fact that it is a psychological issue? Many psychologists and psychiatrists are saying the exact same thing. In fact, some are even comparing this gender dysphoria to anorexia. Now, if a person comes with anorexia, do you take out her stomach or his stomach? Do you shut them, stitch their mouth? And yet you have a person that has a gender dysphoria issue, and we are talking about taking physical actions, allowing them to start to take physical actions to transgender themselves. And I've also talked with some child development psychologists, and they said this is very natural for a lot of children to go through this identity stage. Usually it resolves itself. Sometimes it does need some psychological counseling, but it's still generally a psychological, it's not a physical or biological reason. Some people have talked about this issue as if it's a civil rights issue. Biology is not bigotry. Biology is who I am. I may tell you right now that I'm identifying as a cat today, but you're going to look at me and you're going to say, wait a minute, he's not a cat, he doesn't have claws, he can't jump, he doesn't meow, meow, meow. But that's what I identify as. I'm a man. Even if I want to identify as a woman, I'm a man. And if you were to say to me, because I told you that I was a cat, you would start to say, you know what, maybe he has a psychological problem. Maybe he has a delusion issue. Maybe there's something else going on, a mental illness. But you would not, for you to treat me as a cat would be doing me a grave disservice. We've talked about the issue of suicide. One of the things that we don't talk about is that children that go through the transgender surgery, they have a 19 times higher suicide factor. Is that really where you want to go? Let a judge come in and say, you know what, we're going to use this as a basis possibly for whatever. But the children that go through this, they have a 19 times, not percent, times higher suicide rate. Is that really where we want to go? I would say to allow this is abuse. And I close with that. I will accept any questions if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. I believe that Representative Calanni has a question for you.
I do. So let's say you're a dog, right?
Or a cat.
No, I'm a cat today.
Okay, so you're a cat, right?
I just didn't want to be insulted by you calling me a dog.
Okay. So you're a cat.
Right.
And you go to the vet, right? And there's something wrong with you. You have an ailment. But the doctor is looking at you and has decided that you're a dog. Is the doctor going to be able to perform the surgeries that you need, given that you're a cat?
Given that I'm a man and a human that is in a delusional state,
no, we're talking about the fact that
you're
you're a cat. We're talking about a veterinary situation here because
right.
you were using animals. So I'm using.
No, I'm saying I am identifying as an animal. I'm not saying I'm an animal. I'm saying I'm identifying as an animal. I am a man. If I identify as a woman, I'm
let's
still a man.
just pretend that we have an actual animal situation. You've got a cat going to the vet, and someone says, "This is my dog, and I think my dog needs to have XYZ surgery," right?
Well, is it a medical malpractice issue?
Just the animal is ill, right? So is it helpful for the vet to know exactly what the animal is, whether it's a cat or a dog, or can they just decide that on their own?
Well, I would say this, that the vet would look at the animal itself, not what somebody thinks about the animal. And if I were to say that I identified as a cat, the doctor has a responsibility, unless he or she wants to be guilty of medical malpractice, of looking at me as who I am. Who am I? What am I?
Okay, let's use another situation. So let's say that this patient has been treated before at a facility, right? And now they're coming to a new facility. Would it be helpful for the doctor that's checking out the patient to have that previous record, the medical records?
I would
To
say it would be
understand what was going on?
very, very helpful for a psychologist to have those records.
No, we're not talking about any type of mental health situation. I'm asking
Okay.
you, if let's say you had a heart, you suffered a stroke, right?
Okay, I suffered a stroke.
Okay, at
And
one
what
hospital.
would the treatment be for the
At
stroke?
one hospital, no, we're not going to medical jargon.
Right, no, yeah, that's
You
fine.
suffered a stroke,
Mhm.
okay? Now you're going to a new doctor, right? And the new doctor says, hey, do you have any previous medical issues, right? So would it be helpful for the doctor to have your medical records?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It would be malpractice for him. Well, I don't know if it would be malpractice, but absolutely he needs to have that knowledge. But the question is still, if I've had a stroke and if I say I've got a pain in my foot because of the stroke or something like that, the doctor doesn't cut off my foot. He has to treat the actual...
I'm not asking about cutting
Right.
things off. I'm
Right.
saying you go in again to this new doctor and you're having some heart palpitations. Would it be helpful or hurtful for that doctor to have your previous medical records?
Of course it would be helpful.
So don't you think in the same situation, if you have a court case, it would be best to have all of the information versus only a portion of it?
I think that when we look at information, we need to look at truth, not propaganda. There is nothing scientific about this transgenderism.
Okay,
This is
whether
an
you think it's
ideology.
propaganda or not, it's still part of the case. So don't you think that all of the information should be given?
I think it's important that that information be given to know if we are dealing with a person who may be delusional or may be under a misimpression.
That's your opinion.
Well, it is my opinion,
also
but
very
biology doesn't
disrespectful.
lie.
Okay, it's disrespectful.
No, I'm just saying biology doesn't lie. If I'm identifying as a cat, you can look at me and you can look at every cell in my body, and it would say that I'm a human and that I'm a man. And I think to go
Okay,
back
but
to
but
this,
you're going back and forth between what your opinion is about transgender, and I don't think that's necessary. What we're asking about here, specifically with this
Right.
bill, is whether if you have a situation where all the information is provided or some of it is closed off. That's the issue. Is it better in a court case to have all of the information or have some of it prohibited?
the issue as I understand it, and correct me if I'm incorrect on this, and Representative Dean, you may need to do so as well. My understanding is that you want to make it that a judge doesn't make that determination, that this is between the parents. And I would say it between both parents. So, because up in Dallas, for example, we have one lady who wants to transgender her son. And we have a man who is no longer married to her, and he has no right in it. So, I mean, I don't know if that's the background for this bill, but I am not sure that a judge should be coming in and making a decision on this and siding with the
That's
mother who
their-
says, I want to transgender the child.
That's their entire job, is to make a decision.
Okay,
So they have to have all of the facts,
Where
and
are
then
the-
they make a decision.
right, but where did the judge's jurisdiction end? And what the bill is that I understand is that there are some issues within the family that we say, why do we have a judge in here? This should be a family
Because it's
issue.
a court case, and so it's no longer handled within the family, it's handled within the court system.
So, well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I've misunderstood part of the bill, but nevertheless, what I would say is this. If you have people that go through transgender surgery and they have a 19 times higher suicide rate, which was something, Representative Calanni, that you brought up about the suicide rate, they have a 19 times higher suicide rate. I would say it would be abuse for that judge to encourage that or to make a decision in that manner, or anything that would actually lead to give credence to that.
But that's not what this bill states. The bill states simply that they would be prohibited from having any of that information.
What is the purpose of them having that information? That I mean, I really maybe I misunderstand the intent of it then, but to me, I guess maybe I misunderstand the intent of the bill. Representative Dean, perhaps you can help me with this.
You're right, sir.
Representative Dean. Well,
The
let me-
intent is.
Yeah, because I think we get lost because the bill says may not consider evidence regarding the party, whether the party demonstrates a history or pattern of acknowledging or declining to acknowledge. So, in the appointment of a sole or joint managing conservator, that's the only situation where this bill affects. That's the only situation
Right.
where the bill affects. Is in the situation where a court is attempting to determine whether to appoint one parent or the other parent the sole or joint managing conservator. That's the first thing got to happen. And then it says they will not consider, the court will not consider evidence of that parent, acknowledgement or non-acknowledgement of the child's gender identity with regard to that appointment. That's all it does.
Sure, and I would say in response to that, Chairman Dutton, that a responsible parent would tell the child the truth, maybe sympathetically, maybe there's a lot of other hard questions that are there, but is it not abusive of a parent to affirm a delusion or a lie rather than try to treat it?
Well,
and I think that would be important.
Again, I think you're getting. I'm trying to get you back into
okay,
the
I
field
appreciate
of
that.
play here, because I think you keep getting out of bounds.
Okay, and that may be.
And this is about the appointment of a parent as sole or joint managing conservator only, because that's what this bill says. That's the only consideration that's being made. And then the bill talks about what the court can or cannot consider in terms of making that appointment. That's all it does.
Sure.
It doesn't do all these other things. It doesn't.
I guess my concern is this, is that we're talking about the parent who may not affirm the child's confusion and maybe talking about that person in a negative light, rather than saying that person should be treated in a positive light. And maybe the other parent who is saying, "Oh, I'm with the confusion. Maybe you're a woman today. Maybe you're something else tomorrow. Maybe you're gender binary something." You know, that I think is what I was concerned about. To say that a responsible parent needs to parent, and sometimes it's telling a child.
Well, again, I think
truth.
you're getting off, out of the field of play here.
Okay, and that may be.
Let's start with,
Sure.
you got two parents,
Right.
all right? For some reason, whatever the reason is, these parents are before the court to get a divorce. The court has to determine the issues of conservatorship regarding that child.
Right.
Whether and the court is trying to decide whether to appoint one of those parents sole or joint managing conservator. That's all.
So
It doesn't do anything else.
Right.
Okay.
And
what this bill says is that they won't include in their decision or use as a basis for their decision whether one parent or the other parent acknowledges or refuses to acknowledge the child's gender identity. Okay, that's all. Now, all the other things you're talking about have nothing to do with that. Okay?
Okay, that's fine.
All right. Have absolutely nothing to do.
I think, though, that in light of some of the conversation I heard, I was appropriate to address some of those things, because there were a lot of issues being talked about that did not necessarily pertain to the bill as I understood it. So I thought that those issues also should be addressed as well. With regard to the issue of conservatorship, who gets that determination, that probably would be for a different bill for me to discuss that. I have a
No, that's in this bill.
Okay, well, I have a very difficult time that a person files for unilateral no-fault divorce and then gets conservatorship. I'm going to leave a marriage and then get the kids and get the child support and everything else. That's a different story completely.
Well,
but
that's
what
not
I'm
in
saying.
that's not
exactly,
in this bill either. Yeah.
Right, no, that's what I'm
Okay.
saying, but that is a different bill. That's why I said it's a different bill.
Well, that's why I'm trying to keep you on this
Yeah.
bill. I'm trying to get you to stay on this bill,
Yeah.
not on another bill, not on.
Well, I do support Representative Dean's bill.
Do you? Okay.
Yes.
Like it is?
As it is.
As it is. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sorry for any
I think, Representative, okay, no comment.
Sorry for any
Okay,
confusion that
that's
I
all
made.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I had a comment, not a
All
question.
right,
Is that
sure,
allowed?
sure.
No, I just wanted to just personally apologize to any trans folks in the crowd or parents of trans kids who had to listen to some I think, misguided and backwards ideas that I personally found offensive. I appreciate that everyone has an opportunity to come speak at the committee, but I think 50 years from now, we'll look back at some of the words that are spoken here and feel pretty ashamed.
Well, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I had to go lay out another bill, but let me say this to everybody who wishes to testify. We're going to make sure that you testify on this bill, not something else, not because the only thing we have before us is a committee substitute for House Bill 1910. And what it says, you either testifying against the bill, and you can tell us why you're against it, but it has to all relate, your testimony has to relate to this bill. We're not interested in all that other stuff. That, you can testify on that by yourself.